Hi, both. Thanks for joining us today on our Business Gurus channel, where we will be discussing key business topics to help students grasp the most important elements of their course in preparation for their exams and future career. Let's get started.
Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, we break them down, and basically we give you the shortcut to sounding like you've read it all. Every time you look at a price tag, maybe for like a new app or something physical in a store, we tend to think, okay, it's just the cost of the materials plus some profit margin. Simple.
Yeah, but it's really it's so much more complex than that, isn't it? That
Mm.
final price. It's more like a constant negotiation with the entire market.
A negotiation, I like that.
Exactly.
Right.
And today we're diving into some core research that really lays out the four main pillars that influence this whole negotiation.
hmm
The goal is to help you understand the strategy behind, why things cost what they do.
Right. So we're moving past just the basic math. We want to give you a structured look at these big forces dictating costs and also the levers companies are actually pulling. It's about profit, sure, but sometimes it's about market dominance too. Okay, so let's unpack this framework. We're focusing on four key things today: technology, competition, market segments, and the product life cycle. These seem to be the core drivers.
They really are. And what's fascinating, I think, is that businesses almost never get to just pick a price out of thin air. They're always working within the boundaries set by how these four factors interact.
Okay, let's start with the first one then: technology.
Right.
Usually, when we think tech and price, we think efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Like robots, faster production, it lowers costs. So logically, prices should drop. But you're saying that's only half the story.
That's exactly the dual effect we see in the research. Yes, tech definitely boosts efficiency, which can allow companies to lower costs. But maybe the bigger impact, the more disruptive one, is how it changes, fundamentally, how customers even access or use a product.
Access, okay.
Yeah, and that can completely change the demand for older ways of doing things.
Wow, okay. So it's not just about making the same thing cheaper. It's about potentially making the old thing irrelevant.
Pretty much. It can shake up an entire existing market.
Do we have a good example of that from the source material?
Oh, absolutely. Think about the music industry. Remember CDs?
Vaguely, yes.
Well, the rise of streaming, services like Spotify Premium, it didn't just offer a different price point than buying a CD. It changed access. Suddenly, you had millions of songs on your phone.
Right. Instantly.
Exactly. And that basically made the physical CD feel obsolete for many people. So what happened? CD retailers, they had to slash prices dramatically, not because CDs cost less to make, but just to clear out stock and try to compete in a market that had just, fundamentally shifted online.
Got it. So the price drop wasn't about manufacturing costs at all. It was this external tech shift that forced everyone down the line to just scramble.
Precisely. It shows how technology can have this huge, sometimes devastating impact on established pricing models.
Okay, so technology sets a new kind of baseline, maybe changes access. What comes next? Competition.
Yes, competition. Once tech has maybe reshaped the landscape, the immediate pressure point is your rivals. This is where you see the direct price wars happen. Companies are constantly watching each other.
Always looking over their shoulder. So, what are the main ways companies respond strategically when a rival makes a big price move, say, cuts their price?
Well, in really competitive areas, the sources point to three main choices. One, you can just match the price cut, reduce yours too.
Okay, the direct match.
Two, you could decide to just accept maybe losing some market share for a while, hold your price steady,
Risky.
can be. Or three, and this is often the key to staying profitable long term, you aggressively differentiate your product or service, making clear why yours is worth more, even if the price is higher.
Differentiation. So you
Okay.
try to make price less of the main comparison point.
Exactly. Because if you can't differentiate, you're kind of stuck, right?
Yeah.
Price becomes the only thing you can really compete on, and that often leads to that race to the bottom nobody really wants.
Yeah, kills margins. The source material had a really clear example of this, didn't it? The streaming wars again.
It did. The whole scenario with the Disney Plus launching. They came into the market with a deliberately low subscription price.
Right. Undercut the big players.
And that put immediate huge pressure on Netflix. What's key here, especially in mature markets like streaming now, is that even giants like Netflix end up spending a lot of energy just reacting to what competitors do. It becomes more about strategic defense than offense.
So Netflix couldn't just ignore Disney Plus price.
Not really. They were essentially forced to adapt their own pricing structure, maybe introduce different tiers, things like that, just to protect the massive market share they already had.
Wow. It really shows how fluid pricing is. It's reacting constantly to these external threats, not just based on, how much it costs to run their servers.
Exactly. Pure rivalry driving the price adjustments.
Okay, so we've got technology changing the game, competition forcing reactions. What about how companies look inward at their customers? That brings us to market segments. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. The idea that businesses charge different prices to different groups for basically the same thing. We call it price segmentation or sometimes price discrimination, though that sounds a bit harsh.
It does, but in economics, it's a standard term.
How does the source material frame this? Is it just about squeezing every last penny, or is it presented as more strategic?
It's framed as smart targeting, really aiming for revenue maximization across the entire potential market. The idea is different customers have different income levels, different needs, and crucially, different willingness to pay.
Okay.
So you can segment your market effectively. You charge different prices. You might capture price-sensitive customers with a lower price without losing the revenue from those who are willing and able to pay more. It increases your overall reach.
Right. You're trying to get everyone possible under your tent, but at the price point that works for them.
Essentially, yes, you carve up the potential customer base into these strategic groups.
And the classic example of this, again from the source material, takes us back to streaming.
Absolutely. Spotify's student discounts are a perfect illustration.
Yeah. How so?
Well, it's clearly not about making maximum profit from students right now. Students are usually budget conscious.
For sure.
So it's a targeted strategy. Attract that student segment early with a lower price, get them hooked on the service. The long-term bet is that when they graduate, get jobs, have more income, they'll transition into full-price subscribers.
Ah, that's clever. It's pricing based on their future potential value, not just their current situation.
Exactly. It requires real insight into customer life cycle and potential income changes. You're pricing for the customer they might become.
That's quite strategic. Okay, one more big pillar. The product life cycle.
Yes, the age of the product itself.
This seems intuitive, but how does it play out strategically? A brand new product versus one that's been around for a while. They need totally different pricing approaches, right?
Completely different. The product stage in its life cycle dictates the pricing strategy, according to the research. When something new, maybe innovative, is first introduced, firms generally have two main options.
Okay.
Option one is called skimming pricing. You set a high initial price. The goal is to maximize profits quickly from the early adopters, the enthusiasts, who, absolutely have to have it first, regardless of cost.
Right. Think new iPhones, top-tier graphics cards, high price, initially lower volume, but high margins from those keen buyers.
Precisely. The alternative approach is penetration pricing.
Opposite strategy.
Exactly the opposite. You set a low initial price. The aim here isn't immediate maximum profit, but rather to grab a big chunk of market share really quickly. Optimize for volume, get lots of users fast, maybe build network effects.
Okay, skimming for early profit, penetration for quick market grab. What about when a product is, getting old, heading towards the end of its run? The decline stage.
Yeah, the decline stage is treated very differently. Here, it's often about promotional pricing. The main goal is usually just to clear out remaining inventory.
It must be tough, right? Having to slash the price on something you might have launched with a big revolutionary marketing campaign not too long ago.
It highlights the cold, hard logic needed sometimes. Business decisions driven by the product's position in its life cycle.
And the source material gives us a prime example of this cold logic in action.
Apple. There's really no better example cited.
Yeah.
Think about iPhones. When a new model launches, what happens to the price of the previous year's model?
It drops instantly.
Exactly. That older iPhone has effectively just moved into the decline stage of its specific life cycle. The price reduction isn't just a random sale, it's a calculated move. It's promotional pricing designed specifically to liquidate the remaining stock of the older model quickly and efficiently.
Because you don't want those older, lower margin phones sitting around, potentially taking sales away from your brand new high margin flagship.
Precisely. You can't let old inventory cannibalize new product sales. The product life cycle forces these kinds of pricing decisions.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening when you see a price tag?
Well, we've unpacked these four big forces, right? Technology changing costs and, importantly, access. Competition, forcing companies to either differentiate or match prices strategically.
Right.
Market segments, allowing for that targeted pricing based on willingness to pay.
Yeah.
And finally, the product life cycle, demanding different strategies depending on whether a product is new or nearing its end.
So these four things, tech, competition, segments, life cycle, they're like these constant points of tension, constantly interacting to set the boundaries for what a company can charge.
Exactly. It helps explain so much,
Yeah.
why that flight costs less if you book way in advance versus last minute, why a new game console starts super high and then drops significantly later on. It's all these forces at play.
We often focus just on the price number itself, but maybe we should think more about the story that price tells about the product and the market.
That's a great way to put it.
And that actually brings us back to a term that was mentioned in the source material, the marketing mix. We've spent this whole deep dive really zeroing in on price, but that's only one piece of the puzzle, right?
That's right. Price is just one of the traditional P's of marketing. Product, place, promotion, price.
So maybe a final thought for you to consider building on this. How do these pricing decisions we've talked about, like choosing high skimming versus low penetration pricing, how do they interact with those other parts of the marketing mix?
That's a really important question. How does the price you choose change how the product itself is perceived? Or how it's sold? Or where it's sold?
Yeah, like does setting a really high price make you perceive the product's functions or design differently? Does it change the whole feel of the product? That interaction between the dollar sign and our perception? Well, that's where marketing gets really complex.
Definitely something to mull over.
We'll leave that interesting thought with you until the next deep dive.
Thanks to both of you for joining us today. You've been listening to the Business Gurus. Let's now hand it over to you. What further questions do you have based on what we've discussed so far? Leave a comment and we'll get back to you right away. If you haven't already, hit that follow for more business tips.